Okay, cool. So the date is April 11th, 2021, and the interviewer is Kathy Shu, she, her, hers, and the interviewee is Jacina Hollins-Borges, she, her, hers. And do you consent to video and audio recording that will be publicly available on a future website?
Do consent.
Perfect. Okay, so the first question is, what role has imagination, I just heard a really bad echo. Okay, what role has imagination and or fantasy played in your life? How has it been formative for you?
Well, probably because, when I was growing up, my dad, I think he would always really try to get my imagination going and probably to get me to want to, be like an archaeologist, would be something really cool. But he used to like bury bones that he got from like some school box place in like the dirt, and I would like dig it up and I'd be like, oh my god, I found dinosaur bones, and I'd like think about all these things I could be. Like I wanted to be a geologist because I was imagining like, I don't know what I was imagining about being a geologist, but that was a big part. And then years later, years passed, and then fifth grade, I learned about the Percy Jackson books, and I read through all of them so fast, and I loved them so much, and it just really opened up my world to being able to imagine a lot of things. I used to write a lot of stories, and it kind of helped me write those stories and kind of see myself in different worlds. And I don't know if it was necessarily escapism, but it was definitely a way for me to have fun by myself. And being an only child, I mean, I could just write stories all day. And I was always the main character, of course, and it was a big part of my childhood. Yeah.
So like, obviously you don't need to share like too much personal detail if you don't want to, but like what types of like stories would you write about, or like what do you think they were like providing you that like your reality wasn't providing you?
They definitely provided me a sense of like heroism because I was always the main character and I was always the one that would like save the day most of the time. Because there was one, I spent so much time on this. This was probably in fifth grade. I hand wrote like it was like 10 pages front and back. This like script of me and my best friend at the time being spies that were like, it was basically 21 Jump Street before it came out, or if it did come out already. I didn't see it because I was very young. Like we were spies and we were being sent to high school, and we had to find the like evil villain, and it was basically like totally spies plus 21 Jump Street. So it was definitely a lot of like me being a cool like badass hero. I was watching a lot of like Avatar: The Last Airbender and Kim Possible at the time. Those are probably like my two favorite shows. So I just saw myself as this big like badass woman who was able to save the day and was very confident in herself, like sassy, just like had no restraints on herself in a good way.
I love that. Okay. And could you talk a little bit more about like you mentioned Percy Jackson, so like what effects like fantastical literature or like media had, and like what your relationship was with them?
Well, I was obsessed, and that has led to me loving them to this day at 22 years old. I think it definitely opened up a world for me, two different worlds, I would say. On one hand, it led me to being very, very interested in Greek mythology and just mythology in general, which thank you, Rick Riordan. He did for so many children at the time with all of his books. And then, then I got a book. It's very famous, the Edith Hamilton mythology book. I read through and I loved it. And it just kind of made me love the ancient world, which then I'm a history major now. And I think that definitely led to that, and it helped me kind of see the wonder that is within history, instead of thinking that it's like really boring and it's like this stuff already happened, I don't care. But it's like, look what people believe, and look what humans, created and tried to make it. I don't know, stuff like that. It was very interesting to me, and it definitely led me down that path. And on the other hand, it led me down a path of like believing I was special, which was I don't know, definitely good and bad. I was just very impressionable child. Like believing I was special and that I had a destiny and that I was going to be fantastic and I was going to be introduced to some different dimension that I wasn't able to see before. Like basically like all YA books. Like, oh, there's this other world you have no idea about. I definitely was thinking like, okay, so one day since I'm the chosen one, I'm gonna do this and this and this, because it definitely, I don't know, I didn't have a lot of friends. I was an only child. It definitely helped me feel special and feel more than just like just an only child who didn't have a lot of friends and was quiet at school. It helped me feel like a lot more than that. And I think that was good for the time, because it allowed me to like still be happy and love to laugh and do all those kinds of things, because I thought like I had a whole world that was going to open up to me when I turned like 14 or 16 or 18, and then it didn't happen. But that's okay.
Okay, I'm interested in like how that like translates into like where you are now in terms of like thinking about like the possibilities that are like out there, like possible worlds. Like how are you viewing the fantastical now as like a 22-year-old?
Well, I definitely don't. Okay, so okay, let's go. My mother is Christian, and throughout my entire life was like, did you pray? Did you pray? Let's pray, blah, blah, blah. But hadn't really introduced me to anything that Christian other than praying. And she wasn't even very descriptive about that. I did not know what it was um, until I was 16. So then, because of, the books I was reading and the alone time I had, I was able to, be very open to anything being possible. So now I'm still kind of in that state where, in a very agnostic way, I think anything could be there. And like anything, like there could be magic that I just can't see or don't know about. There could be fairies. I don't know. Maybe. Like, I think it has led me to being very open about anything happening. And I think it really does help in almost in a mental health sense, like help me see wonder in the world, because I can always think like there's something more, and it makes me kind of more amazed by like when I go on like walks and I see something, or when something goes right for me, and like if I'm having a bad day and then something kind of like falls into place really in a way that it shouldn't have, but it really helps me out, I'll say thank you. I don't know who I'm saying thank you to, but it does help me kind of like, you know, see the world in a more wondrous way. And it does help me appreciate it when I'm not feeling my best.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, gratitude is obviously, like we both know, very important. Um, yeah, and I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about like how, so you mentioned in like the ways of like gratitude and like feeling like wonder, but like what are some, or if you could expand upon that or like talk about other ways that like you think the fantastical like and the imagination like influences our like reality, how it like seeps through.
Okay. I think when for example, I guess when I go on walks, usually at sunrise or sunset or at night, not really if I go on a day walk, because there's too many people outside to distract me from, they're bringing me back to reality. I don't want to be in reality. I want to be in what we might not know about. So I'll go at sunrise or sunset or night, and then it just feels very different. I think I am kind of allowing myself to feel a little different towards it, and it feels like things are like flittering, or it sounds a little schizophrenic. It's not. It's like it feels like the world is a little more open to me because I'm not being distracted by like, no, this is what's real. This is what's concrete. This is like, look at the people. You only know people. And like one day, like you like everything you see is exactly what's real. And if you don't see it, it's not real. It helps me kind of get out of that headspace and appreciate things more. So like a lot of the time when I'll go down to like the golf course and like stargaze, I'll just look at it, look at the stars and think like, wow, and look at them like talk to each other, or maybe they're talking to each other. Maybe they're like, look at the constellations. Maybe they're like, in the way that people thousands of years ago were thinking, like they are like our ancestors, like who like the heroes of before, and then they were honored and like in the stars like that. I think it helps me kind of open up. And even though in the back of my mind I'm like, that's probably not true, it does help. It's very wondrous, and it's very joyful for me to be able to do that and to feel that, even though in the back of my mind I'm like, that's not true.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering, you talked about like history and also talked about like what like the past like imaginations have like how like they might like affect like I don't know like the past imaginations of stars like affecting your current imagination of stars. Um I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what you think about like the relationship between like past imaginations and how they affect like your imagination slash your imagination of like the future.
You mean past imaginations as in like my own, or past as in like humanity's?
I'm kind of like going at it from like your like history major point of view,
Okay.
like anything that you think like connecting with past, present, future.
Well, in that case, I think studying history has definitely taught me that humans have always been the same, and that, yeah, in a very kind of biological sense, we are the same species that we have always been, Homo sapiens. So we don't act different. Like dogs don't suddenly like act differently as time passes. They're just dogs. Humans will act the same every time. We're Homo sapiens. So I think that has led me to kind of thinking, so this is what they were doing in the past. And this is these are the wondrous things that they were thinking about. And then these were the ways they were seeing and kind of explaining nature to themselves in this magical way. And now we've kind of, in like learning about science, we've kind of strayed away from that and strayed away from that wonder, which is good. Science is good. I do like it. But also, I think it kind of has, in a way, like shut down the imagination in a little bit of a way, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I don't necessarily know if it's a good thing either, because it's kind of, it sucks the joy out of life a little bit, I think, and sucks the like wonder and the sense of like, I don't actually know kind of part of life. And I think that's a good thing. Like not being completely sure is okay and good. And I think that was something that like past humans had, because they had no idea what was going on. And now we have so much, we know a lot about what's going on, but it kind of, I don't know, in an individual sense, not necessarily utilitarian sense, but I think in an individual sense, it's very nice to like not know and be very like, it could be anything, because it's very freeing. Freedom is very important to me. So I think that's a big part of why I like it.
Cool. Yeah. And I'm wondering what you think, like maybe you talked a little bit about like why wonder is important, like individually, but maybe if you could talk about like what power and potential you think that the imagination has societally or even politically.
It's a good question. I think in a very basic sense. Thinking outside the box, thinking of different ways to organize society is something that I think we don't have right now. We have definitely gotten stuck in this idea of like capitalism, socialism, or communism. What are we going to choose? But there's definitely, and that's very specific, but kind of what's all in the atmosphere right now. But in 2021, but I think it's kind of shut us down a little bit in terms of figuring out the best way to be egalitarian and very, nice. I think it's the lack of kind of imagination because we have science, because we have studied these things. I think it has led people to be like, well, we can't do that because it won't work. Well, I don't know, maybe it will. And not necessarily like, but there might be even tons of different ways of organizing that we haven't thought about, but we're in this kind of idea of like, we have to do this, this, or this. But I think there's other ways. I don't necessarily know. I'm not a political scientist, but I don't know. I think there's a lack of imagination. And I think it has been, I don't know, fed also by the way that society has been a little bit corrupt, not a little bit corrupted. And then the politics has been corrupted by money and power and the idea of power, which again kind of goes back to the Homo sapiens, like humans will always be humans. They like money and they like power. So I don't know where that leads me, but I do think it has shut down our minds a little bit to not believe in like the wondrous part of life. We don't see life as like this is kind of from my granola upbringing, but like we don't see life as this kind of like thing we're a part of. Like it's not about humans, it's just about like we are part of the earth. And the earth has so many things we don't know about. We see it more as like we're humans, we're in control of the earth, we're in control of ourselves. Let's figure out how to organize and let's do this. And then like some people are like, well, I want the power to choose. And then other people are like, well, no, I want the power to choose. And it's like, well, I want money because it gives me the power to choose. Stuff like that.
Yeah, the more you're talking, the more I'm thinking that like there's this book that I've just started reading called World of Wonders that like you might be interested in. It's like very connected to like nature. It's illustrated too. But yeah, and I guess to like go towards like expanding our minds. If given no real world restrictions, what would be the ultimate self or like elements of it that you would imagine for yourself?
All right, let's go. I'm a little taller. First off, I'm 5'1". Well, 5 3/4. I'd like to be taller than that. I'd like to be a nice 5'7". So in this world, I'm 5'7". I look the same. I think I look fine. So I'm 5'7". I look the same. However, I got elf ears because they look cool. They make you look a little more regal. I already kind of have an angular face. You can't tell because I just woke up. It's a little swollen. But like you got the elf ears. So what else? I think I would have like plant powers just because I like the idea of feeling very connected to the earth. Some kind of thing that's only very like earth centered is something that I would be very connected to in a kind of magic way. And then yeah, I think I'd be in that sense, I'd also be able to like understand, like whatever understand means, but like I understand my place on the earth as just something that's like, I'm just here. That's it. And I'm not like putting all this pressure to like do anything. I'm just like there. I am a part of the earth. I'm not, a college student who has to go get a job and has to make money in order to survive. In that case, I'd just be like a human who is, like that rabbit over there, like just living a life, just existing on earth, a part of the life cycle, a part of how it functions. I think that'd be very nice. Except for the elf ears, I guess it's not that human, but maybe it's like mutation, whatever.
What types of like plant powers do you think you'd have?
Like growing, definitely like growth. If like, I don't know, but I'm thinking of like putting my hand on the ground and like growth coming out like forwards from it in a very like healing way is the way I'm thinking about it.
And I'm just thinking back to like your survey answer where you like mentioned, I don't know if you want to, if you want to be like mainly just like plants and earth, or if you still want to talk about like celestial aspect.
Oh, totally forgot about that stuff. So I'm very into that kind of, the kind of symbolism I connect to very much is like sun, moon, stars, celestial kind of connections. So yeah, I would definitely want that because I think it also connects to that idea of like understanding. And it's like, and the also idea of like wonder, like we don't know, like sun, moon, stars, there's so much we don't know about them. So I think it's very, and they're just pretty. It's kind of it's, I think that comes from a want to not feel so tied down because, you know, sun, moon, stars, they're just, I don't know, open and they're above us and they're out, you know. I think it comes from like the openness of them and how unrestrained they seem to be, even though that's not necessarily true, blah, 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 gravity. But yeah, so I would probably still have some sun powers, maybe some star powers, don't know. But probably I'd maybe just be the avatar, who knows, but like in a sun, moon, earth kind of way.
Are there any like specific like how you think that you would interact with like the sun and the moon and like and the stars and like celestial elements?
In my mind, I'm thinking of like as a like protection. Like I have been like given that like some deity, maybe even the sun, moon, stars themselves have like give like in Moana, like how the ocean chose her. Like and it's like I've been given once again the idea of like being the chosen one. Like I'd be like given the like gift of power of these entities to like protect the earth because that's my role on earth, you know, instead of like my role on earth is to go get a job and eventually die. But like roles to like protect it, you know, from people who want the power, who want blah blah blah, you know.
And I'm noticing like a theme of like, you know, you want to use like the plants for like growth and healing, and then like the celestial elements for like protection. How do you see yourself like healing, protecting, growing in relation to like other people? And like basically, like, how do you see these powers being used?
Well, I see them in a very I read YA fantasy book sense. Like you know, we're in a war, not a war, but like, you know, a battle, you know, a battle scene, like the end of Percy Jackson, every single Percy Jackson book. Like I am protecting from these forces that want to take over because all they want is power in a very simple way, and kind of the way that all like superheroes movies make their villains, like their whole goal is like, I just want power. I just want to be able to control. Like I think I'm thinking of a very basic way. Like I would protect from people who just want to like destroy so that they can remake and control and stuff like that. And also I forgot. So yeah, that.
So basically what I'm getting is that like on a like regular day, you would kind of be like just this like being that just exists and you're just here. And but like when it like comes to like basically when like when the people are attacked, you're there to like protect in a more like, I guess, dramatic or like more like, you know, like I don't know what the adjective for this would be, but I guess more dramatic, for lack of a better word, way.
I guess so, yeah. I'd be like the Batman, but I'm not rich or anything. But I'd be kind of like when they call, and not even just people, but like anything that's in trouble in a very like kind of kid show sense. Or like if something's, you know, being threatened by another thing in a way that like disturbs the balance or disturbs how things are like naturally, then yeah. Well, now, okay. Well, that goes into like whatever, but like in a way that is negative, in a utilitarian sense, then I would, go and fight that and bring back, the peace.
Well, part of your response for the survey that like really like I thought was super cool was that you talked about like an image in your mind of like pulling stars out of the sky and using them to fight almost like fireballs. Is that something you're still interested in?
Obviously, yes. I think it's an incredibly cool visual. Like one, and then you have them like circling. Is my idea is like they're circling around, and then and then I feel like Jeff Goldblum, you know, like that. I think that's a very cool idea because I love the stars. They're very pretty and they're bright, and like I really like the sense of like humans really like light. I really like light, and it's like the fighting with light and fighting with like I don't know. I think there's something there, like fighting with light and kind of the idea of like light and darkness, good and evil kind of stuff.
Okay, so we kind of imagine like your ultimate self. Where do you see like what type of a world do you see in like being in? Like kind of like, let's like go into like Jacina's world building. Like what do you imagine this like world, this universe being like? What elements are there? How do you like how are other beings existing in this world?
Okay. Well, since in terms of like the kind of media that I like to consume or that I would love if there were more of, like urban fantasy kind of things, like where we have technology. I do like my phone. So like we have technology and we have these things and we have buildings, we have plumbing, but we also have the elements of earth that if you would think about this have been like hidden to us in this reality that we're in, but like we have like completely opened ourselves to earth, and we've completely opened ourselves to all everything that it could provide or that it has. And then so everybody, every single kind of like thing exists. Like there's different like spirits or like just different things that aren't just like humans and non-human animals and rocks and trees, and that's it, you know.
Cool. And going back to like that, like kind of like protective kind of like feature, kind of like trying to protect like not only humans, but also like all sorts of beings. How do you see that, like that, going back to like the idea of like the ways that the imagination affects our reality? How do you see that, like maybe you carry these kind of characteristics already?
Can you repeat it?
Yeah, like basically like these kind of like protective qualities that you want and to be able to like protect not only humans but also just like beings in general. How do you kind of see that playing out in your life already?
I see. Well, I guess it does definitely play in. I mean, my personality is my personality, so it plays in a lot too. On one hand, even though I'm not that good at it because I have other issues going on, I like to be someone who listens and someone who can like really hear another person when they're having, I don't know, something that they're talking about. Like I want to be like very like intent on listening and show them that I am hearing them and that they are being heard. And I think that also translates into the kind of career I want. Because at this point, I really just only want to work in a nonprofit or a government setting, because the idea of working in like a private company that like their whole goal is like to just make someone else rich or just like make money for someone else or like, is icky to me. So I really want to work in a nonprofit where like the labor I am providing, since I have to provide labor because we've created this system where I have to work instead of eating berries by the ocean. Um, if I have to, put my labor towards something, I do want to put it towards like healing or helping, and letting someone else's life not be so terrible or so like, like take it off a path that it might be leading down that might destroy them. And that's the nonprofit sense. And in a government sense, heal in a more, wide ranging way, like fix the system, even though there's so many things that get in the way of trying to fix the system at a governmental level. But yeah.
Oh. Um, yeah, and I guess that relates to another question I had in terms of like whether you think like parts of like what our society is like right now affects like the world that you've like why you've imagined this specific world and this like specific role.
I think it comes from me being it well, I think it okay, so it doesn't come from, but I think it has continued into my adulthood because because I'm just so upset by the world by the system we've created, by the system of life we've created. Like we have, in my opinion, we have ruined life. I mean, there's still good parts, of course. Like there's no way to get rid of like love, or there's no way to get rid of like going on a walk. Well, there might be, but whatever. But I think there are a lot of ways in which we have ruined life in the way we have set it up, especially in the terms of like the way we've just created so many inequalities because people want power, people want money, people want to feel important in a way that's not necessarily like, I think we can feel important by feeling like we're a part of the earth instead of feeling important because we're important to other humans in the same, like not important to as in like relationship wise, but important to in like a society, like I am the leader kind of way. Like you know, I do have this belief that we have like made life so like monotonous, and we have completely like stripped ourselves of a connection to the earth in a way that I think has definitely damaged people. And it's certainly damaged me. I mean, I have anxiety and depression because I have this idea that like I have to do all these human things that we've decided that I have to do. Like I have to graduate college with like a really good GPA, and then I have to go get a job, and I have to play the game of getting a job, you know, LinkedIn and interviews and like kind of lying on my resume almost, and making and just like puffing myself up and like doing these things just to impress other people. It doesn't even make sense if I think about it like that. I think it comes from a sense of being very upset by the fact that this is the system that I have to live in, and I don't know how to break out of it without having to deal with spiders. Like if I move to a cabin in the woods, I have to be okay with spiders, and I'm not. So
Yeah, I love your response, and I love that like you really emphasize like in your imagined world that like you're just part of Earth, you're just here. Um, I guess going into kind of like talking about care and like you said that like love is one of those things that like still persists and is important to like it's important that it's like present and persists. How do you enjoy loving and being loved? That's like the like third main question. And so we can start off with like, how do you like to be loved by others? And like, what are ways of love that you especially appreciate receiving?
I think, okay, well, this is an interesting question, especially because this is a thing I'm talking about with my therapist. In terms of like love and giving love and receiving love, this has definitely been something that has been very important to me because I think in a sense I really like to give love because I don't know, I definitely, okay, I am loved, I know that, and I am loved by my mother, but she's not very good at showing it. She's very emotionally closed off, so in my sense I want to be very open about it, but it is difficult for me because of the way I grew up and then my mental health issues. It's difficult for me to like show, like go with my want to show people how much I love them. But on the inside, I'm like I'm spilling over with love for my friends and love for just people in general. Like I have a lot of wonder about people that I kind of keep a little closed in because I'm afraid, but it definitely plays into that. Like I want to show people how much I love them and how much like I feel love for people honestly very easily. And I have a lot of like I'm trying to shut it down because of whatever that my therapist will help me figure out. But like I think that's it plays a lot into that because I feel like the earth loving me and giving me everything I need in a sense. Like I can go if I wanted to pick a berry and eat it if it hasn't been sprayed with pesticides. Um, and eat it and be sustained. And this idea that like I can be sustained and I can help sustain other people with love, and that they can help sustain me with love. And that idea of like just love being a very driving force in our lives is very cool to me, but we don't necessarily do that because society has ruined everything. We have to go get jobs and we have to step on each other, and we have to not love each other because the way to like get to the top, which we've all been taught that we need to get to, we have to step on other people to get there, and that's icky.
um okay, yeah, so maybe going back to like the original question. um yeah, like I mean, I'm glad that like obviously I'm glad that like as one of your friends that like you feel like you are loved by people, and I'm wondering if you can go back to like talking about like specifics in terms of like ways that people love you that you especially appreciate receiving.
Ways that people love me that I especially like to receive.
Or like expressions of love. Yeah.
Well, I just really like, well, okay, if I take that little love language test, it's quality time, which is definitely true. I do love quality time and love spending time with other people, in part because I'm leaning towards being an extrovert, and I really like to just connect and feel love by feeling like other people do want to spend time with me, and feel like they love me because they like to spend time with me. Quality time is a big part of it. Very like thoughtful gifts are very nice to me because I have this idea that I am not known that well, and that people, will get a gift that they think I'll like, they don't actually that, but I don't actually like that much, because it's just, and then it's really disappointing because I'm like, they don't actually know me. But then when I get a gift that's like very connected to me as a person, I feel so ecstatic and so loved. And I love that a lot. Like last year for my 21st, my roommate, she gave me she got an artist to draw me as a Bob's Burgers character, which was amazing. I mean, I cried. I loved it so much because I mean, Bob's Burgers is like my comfort show, and she knows that I love it so much. I watch it when I'm sad or happy. I watch it whenever. And then it was a picture, and the picture she chose as a reference for the artist was a picture of me that I really love, because it was a way of, it was when I was really expressing myself. Like I had like half silver, half black hair, and I had all my earrings in, like my cartilage and like my doubles in, and it felt very much like how I like to express myself. And she knew that that's how I would want to be represented, and that was very nice. I felt very like loved in that sense, and it was probably one of the more perfect ones I've done.
Yeah. And you mentioned like you like to like listen to people and like hear them, but how like maybe if you could expand upon like how you enjoy loving people and expressing love and care for others.
I like to sit and listen. I think the pandemic has ruined that a little bit because we're so separated, so it's very hard to sit and listen. But I like to just like sit in person and listen and talk and connect. I think that's a very loving way to exist with another person. um and I like to give gifts. Like my birthday just happened, and I was feeling very kind of sad about it for various reasons. So I planned to send a bunch of my friends a bunch of gifts, like to be like, hey, I love you. Even like it's my birthday and I'm showing you that I'm glad you are in my life for another year. I did fall behind a bit about on it. I only sent out two, but I'm working on it, and I'm still kind of in that mindset of I want to show my friends that I love them by giving them something, and showing them that I'm glad they were in my life for another year, and that I love them for that.
Cool. And the third question everyone has kind of reacted to like, oh, but how do you how do you express love for yourself? How do you love yourself?
That's a good question. I think it goes back to the like feeling wonder about the earth. I think I feel most love for myself when I'm not pressuring myself to live by these very like 21st century human standards. Like when I'm on a walk and I'm feeling great because I feel like I'm a part of life. I feel like I am the same as like the birds, and I feel like I'm the same as the rabbits and everything that the just the stupid little squirrels. I think that's when I love myself the most, because I'm not putting pressure on myself, and I'm not putting pressure on myself to do anything but like exist. Because there's nothing else to do but exist. We've just created this idea that there is. I mean, I'm sitting in my college apartment right now, like, you know, but I think I love myself the most when I'm not putting pressure on myself to do anything or to be anything, but just like myself, but not even like myself in a very, in the way we really think about it, like be yourself, but like in a way where I'm just like, I'm a Homo sapien. That's it.
Well, and I'm thinking about like in terms of like if I were to visually represent you loving and being loved in the ways that you mentioned, the ways that you prefer, what are ways that you see these forms of love being materialized, and like whether it's like actions or like objects?
I guess a lot of natural symbolism, like natural world, like, you know, sun, moon, stars, trees, plants, things like that, in this, and definitely in an abstract sense, because blah blah, like connection, I think is very the most loving idea to me. Like connection is how I want to be represented, and like how I would like to be represented. Like um thinking I don't know if this is real, but like the idea of like the tree of life connecting everything to everything else in that kind of sense, but not in the most like central way. Like I'm not like wanting to be like the tree of life, but just in a way that like connecting to everything and everybody in a very loving way, and that helping me love myself as well.
Cool. And are there like any, just like make sure like we didn't miss anything, like um are there like any elements that you want to make sure that you're depicted as, like whether it's like yourself or in interacting with other people, surroundings?
I guess just a feeling of levity, like no, I would in my mind, in my perfect self, I'm thinking of very like wispy, like not heavy. I don't know what that necessarily means, but like light and like not bogged down by anything. Like I am light. I don't know, like that.
Cool. And is there anything else that you would like to add in terms of like imagination, fantasy, love, any of the things that we've talked about?
Um, I think we should, this is a public service announcement. I think we should have more fantasy media because it's very fun. And I think we've kind of shut it down because we think it's childish. But it's only childish because children are able to imagine, and they love being able to imagine. Imagining is super fun. We should, you know, I think that's a very big part of it. And I think, I mean, fantasy is a good thing. I think it's a very beneficial thing, and that's all I want to add. I think it's like fantasy and imagination is a good thing, and we don't always have to be in this idea of like this is what's real, this is what we know, even though that is very very good and important. I know, but like in a kind of more spiritual sense, I would say fantasy is very important and very beneficial to our lives.
Cool. And I guess that kind of goes with like my last question, which was like if you wanted to leave like a message for like anyone, for anyone like, you know, who might be viewing this, like watching this interview. So would that just be your message?
I guess I could expand, like enjoy yourself. Don't like enjoy yourself, enjoy your life, and find something else, because you know we have to live in the system, we have to go get a job and do these things, but find something else that helps you feel connected to an idea of wonder and fantasy, and that things may not be what they seem in a more magical sense. because I think that helps you open up and feel a little more light in the world, and not so much, not so bogged down by like, this socio-political, socioeconomic system that we made. I think it's freeing, and definitely make time to be freed by those ideas.
Perfect. Yeah. The more you're talking, the more I'm like, you really should read World of Wonders.
I really want to. I'm gonna write it down and read it.
Yeah, it's actually available at the Davidson Library now because my professor added it. Yeah, but I was also like at her like talk once, and she was talking about how like one of her one of her students who was still like a little kid, she was talking about how like children still speak in like metaphorical language and how we lose that over time. And she was saying that like one of the like kids that she had taught was going through a hard time, and he said that like, oh, like I'm holding a pocket of clouds, which is like just, really, really impactful. But yeah.
And I know, I think it's so healing. No, my face is like heating up. If I had lighter skin, I'd be blushing. So I it's like prickly and everything. No, I love that. I think and I think everybody needs a little bit of that. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, well, if you don't have anything else to add, we can end the interview here.
All right. I loved doing it. Thank you. Those were
Yeah,
wonderful questions.